My name is Davide Romano. I'm 40 years old, and for the past 3 years I've been working as an archivist at the Sanctuary of the Spoliation in Assisi. I know it may seem strange that a Milanese like me, born and raised in the shadow of the Duomo, would abandon an established career to move to an Umbrian town of 20,000 inhabitants. My friends thought I'd gone crazy. "You're leaving Milan for Assisi?" they'd ask incredulously, as if I were renouncing civilization to retreat to a medieval hermitage. "What about your apartment in the Navigli area, and your social life, and your professional opportunities?" But when I received that phone call from the Sanctuary of the Spoliation in the fall of 2021, I immediately understood that this wasn't just a job relocation. It was a calling. One of those calls that wakes you up in the middle of the night, that makes your heart beat faster, that makes you understand, without any doubt, that your life is about to change direction irreversibly. My task is to catalogue, preserve, and safeguard everything related to Blessed Carlo Acutis, the young Milanese who revolutionized the way the world looks at sanctity in the 21st century. It's not a simple job. It never has been. It's not just about organizing dusty papers, labeling boxes, or creating digital inventories. It's something much deeper, more sacred. It's about touching the still warm life of a saint, so to speak, handling objects that his adolescent hands touched just 18 years ago, reading words that his pen traced on sheets that still carry the scent of his time, breathing the air of the same places where he prayed, suffered, and offered his brief but intense existence to God. Every morning, when I open the door to my office on the second floor of the sanctuary, I feel the weight of this responsibility resting on my shoulders like an invisible but heavy mantle. I'm not just a custodian of memory, a simple employee who punches the clock and catalogues documents. I'm a witness. I'm a living bridge between Carlo and the future generations who will need his example, his prophetic testimony, his powerful intercession before God's throne. Before arriving in Assisi, I worked at the Diocesan Historical Archive in Milan for almost 15 years. I'd entered fresh out of university with a degree in cultural heritage conservation, specializing in archival studies, full of youthful enthusiasm and idealism. I'd always loved ancient documents, parchments that smell of time and sacred dust, letters written with quill and ink, parish registers that tell of births, marriages, and deaths of entire generations. There was something deeply spiritual about my work, even if not everyone understood it. "But you read old stuff all day," friends would ask when we went out for an evening aperitif in Darsena. "Don't you get bored?" I never got bored. Every document was a window into an era, a life, a human drama. Every trembling signature of a 19th century parish priest, every baptismal register stained with humidity, every yellowed pastoral letter was a fragment of eternity that I had the privilege of preserving for the future. In Milan, I had a comfortable, orderly, predictable life. A studio apartment on the 3rd floor of a 1930s building on Via Vigevano, 2 steps from Naviglio Grande. In the morning, I'd wake up at 7, have breakfast watching the news, and by 8, I was already in the office. The work was interesting, but routine. Cataloguing, digitization, restoration when necessary. I had good colleagues, a boss who respected me, a decent salary. In the evening, I'd sometimes go to the movies or out to dinner with friends. On weekends, I'd visit museums, read historical essays, occasionally attend conferences at the Ambrosiana. It was a good life, but something was missing. I couldn't say exactly what. It was as if I were living in black and white while the world around me was in color. There was a kind of emptiness, incompleteness, an unanswered question that accompanied me like a silent shadow. Then, on October 10th, 2020, something happened that changed everything. I was at home, in front of the television, and they were broadcasting Carlo Acutis' beatification ceremony in Assisi live. I don't know why I watched it. I wasn't particularly devout. I went to Mass on Sundays, more out of habit than conviction. I'd recite some distracted prayer at night before sleeping. But that was pretty much my entire spiritual life. I was, as they say, a lukewarm Catholic, one of those that God vomits from his mouth according to Revelation. Yet watching that ceremony, I felt something move inside me, They showed images of Carlo, a completely normal kid, in jeans and sweatshirts who played video games and surfed the internet. He didn't seem like a saint in the traditional sense. He hadn't lived in a monastery, hadn't taken vows, hadn't performed extreme penances. He was just a teenager from Milan, from my same city, raised a few kilometers from where I lived. Yet he had become a saint. Blessed, technically, but a saint in essence. During the homily, the Cardinal spoke about how Carlo had created a website on Eucharistic miracles, how he spent hours in adoration before the tabernacle, how he had said, "The Eucharist is my highway to heaven." And I, who had grown up in Milan like him, who had lived in the same cultural context, realized how much I had wasted my life. I was 40 years old and had never spent an hour in adoration. I had received the Eucharist thousands of times, but without ever really understanding what I was receiving. That evening, after the broadcast, I went to the Duomo. It was almost empty. I sat in a pew in the back and cried. I don't even know why I was crying. Perhaps for the wasted time. Perhaps for the beauty of that testimony. Perhaps because finally, after years of lukewarm living, I felt God touching my heart. 6 months after that evening at the Duomo, in April 2021, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Father Stefano, the rector of the Sanctuary of the Spoliation in Assisi. Some Franciscan brothers in Milan who knew my work at the Diocesan Archive had given him my name. They were looking for someone with archival experience to catalogue all the documentary material related to Carlo Acutis. It would be a full-time job, with housing provided in Assisi, a decent salary, but certainly not Milanese. "Give me a few days to think about it," I replied, even though inside I already knew the answer. I spent that week in prayer. Not just the usual distracted prayers, but real, deep prayer, made of silence and listening. I returned to the Duomo, sat in the same pew from 6 months earlier, and asked God to enlighten me. If you want me to go, make me understand. If you want me to stay in Milan, make me understand. But please, make me understand what your will is. The answer didn't come like lightning or a voice from heaven. It came as a deep peace, an interior certainty that grew day by day. I had to go. I had to leave Milan, leave comfort, leave security, and throw myself into this absurd adventure of cataloguing the documents of a teenager who had died 15 years earlier. I called Father Stefano and told him yes. 2 months later, in June 2021, I was closing the moving boxes in my Milanese apartment and preparing to start a new life. The first months in Assisi were intense, disorienting, sometimes difficult. The town is beautiful, certainly, with its pink stones, medieval alleys, and Franciscan churches. But it's also small, very quiet, very slow. After years of Milanese life made of crowded subways, trams passing every 3 minutes, and nightlife until dawn, Assisi seemed like another planet. Here, by 9 in the evening, the streets are already deserted. Shops close early. There are no multiplexes, shopping malls, trendy clubs. But there's something else. There's a dense, full silence, pregnant with prayer. There's the constant sensation of walking on holy ground, of breathing a different air, purer, closer to heaven. St. Francis was born here, lived here, died here. St. Clare too. And now Carlo, in a certain sense, also rests here. His body is kept right in the sanctuary where I work, and thousands of pilgrims every month come from all over the world to pray before his tomb. My accommodation is a small apartment on the ground floor of a Franciscan house, 5 minutes walk from the sanctuary. A bedroom, a living room with kitchenette, a bathroom, essential, clean, quiet. The bedroom window overlooks an olive grove. In the morning, I wake up to birdsong and the golden light of dawn filtering through the wooden shutters. The work at the sanctuary exceeded all my expectations. I didn't imagine how much documentation existed about a boy who died at only 15 years old. But Carlo wasn't just any boy. He was a young person who had left a profound mark on everyone who had met him. Teachers, classmates, catechists, Priests, friends, relatives, everyone had preserved something of him. A letter, a note, a photo, an email, a written memory. His mother, Antonia Salzano, had kept everything with almost maniacal care. School notebooks, childhood drawings, computer projects, spiritual diaries, catechesis notes, medical documents from the hospital, photographs of every important moment of his life. There were boxes and boxes of material, all carefully organized by year, all labeled with precise handwriting. My task was twofold. On one hand, to digitally catalogue all this material, creating an accessible archive for scholars and researchers. On the other, to physically preserve the original documents, some of which already showed signs of deterioration. Yellowed papers, faded photographs, notebooks with covers coming off. Every day was a discovery. I'd read the notes Carlo took during religion classes, full of intelligent questions, mature reflections, theological insights surprising for a boy of 12, 13, 14 years old. I'd see his drawings, monstrances, chalices, Eucharistic symbols carefully traced in the margins of notebooks. I'd study the code he'd written to create his website on Eucharistic miracles, pages and pages of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all handmade, all designed to bring souls to Jesus. But what struck me most was his handwriting. It was clear, orderly, almost calligraphic. There were no chaotic erasures, ink stains, disorder. Carlo was meticulous, precise, attentive to details. His writing reflected his spirit, orderly, disciplined, focused. Even in math or science homework, which weren't his favorite subjects, you could see this care, this attention, this desire to do everything well, even the smallest thing, even the most boring. As the months passed, I began to know Carlo through his documents. He was no longer just the blessed teenager the newspapers talked about. He was Carlo, a real boy, with his personality, his tastes, his interior battles, his joys. He loved playing video games, especially Pokemon and Halo. He adored his dogs, Britiola and Chiara. He'd throw tantrums when his mum told him to turn off the computer. He'd fight with his little brother. He'd tease his friends. He was normal, completely normal, but at the same time, he was extraordinary, because that normal boy, between one Pokemon game and another, spent hours in Eucharistic adoration. That boy who fought with his little brother would get up every morning at 6:30 to go to Mass before school. That boy who loved video games used the computer to catalogue every single Eucharistic miracle in history, creating a website that's still visited by millions of people today. Working with these documents changed me. Day after day, week after week, I felt something growing inside me. It wasn't just professional admiration for a well-documented existence. It was something deeper. It was conversion. Carlo, through his papers, his notebooks, his photos, was evangelizing me. He was teaching me that sanctity is possible, that you don't need to do extraordinary things, that it's enough to do ordinary things in an extraordinary way, with love, for God. I started going to Mass every day, not just on Sundays. I started doing Eucharistic adoration, first 10 minutes, then half an hour, then a full hour. I started confessing regularly, reading the Gospel every day, praying the Rosary. My life was changing, and all thanks to this 15-year-old boy who died in 2006, who continued to speak through his papers, his writings, his silent but powerful testimony. My typical day begins at 7 in the morning. I have breakfast at the bar downstairs, a cornetto and a cappuccino, then walk to the sanctuary. Assisi in early morning has a particular silence, different from Milanese silence. Here the silence is full, dense with prayer and history. I always arrive before opening to the public. I like having the sanctuary to myself, at least for an hour, before the pilgrims arrive. My office is a small room on the second floor, with a window overlooking the interior courtyard. I have 2 desks, one for the computer, where I digitally catalogue all the material, and a larger one where I physically examine the documents. Metal shelves occupy 3 walls, full of boxes organized by year and type. Each box has a precise label: Correspondence 2003-2004, Computer Projects 2005, School Notes 2002-2006, and so on. That Tuesday in November 2024 began like all the others. I had planned to catalogue a series of notebooks that Carlo's mother, Antonia, had delivered a few months earlier. They were school notebooks, those with hard blue or red covers, full of notes on history, geography, science. Carlo was a meticulous boy. His handwriting was clear, orderly, with small drawings in the margins, often Eucharistic symbols or decorated crosses. I was leafing through a 2005 religion notebook when it fell to the floor. Nothing dramatic, it happens constantly when handling old documents. I bent down to pick it up and noticed that the inside cover had slightly detached. It wasn't torn, but lifted, as if there was something underneath. I placed the notebook on the desk and turned on the desk lamp. Delicately, I lifted the inside cover further, and it was there. An envelope. Thin, white, yellowed by time, hidden between the cardboard of the cover and the inner guard sheet. My heart started beating faster. In 3 years of work, I had found many interesting things, but never anything hidden. Carlo had deliberately concealed this envelope. Why? With slightly trembling hands, I extracted the envelope. It was sealed. On the front, in Carlo's unmistakable handwriting, it read, "To be opened when the right time comes. C.A." I looked at that phrase for what seemed like an infinite amount of time. When the right time comes. What did it mean? And how do you know when it's the right time? I placed the envelope on the desk and sat down. I needed to think. The archival protocol was clear. Any new document had to be registered, catalogued, and, if necessary, submitted to the superior's judgment before being examined in detail. But this wasn't a normal archival discovery. There was something more. I picked up the phone and called Father Stefano, the sanctuary's rector. I explained what I had found. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then he said, "I'll be right there." Father Stefano is a Franciscan in his 60s, originally from Perugia. He knew the Acutis family when Carlo was still alive and closely followed the entire beatification process. He's a man of few words, but great wisdom. When he entered my office and saw the envelope, he stopped at the threshold. "May I?" he asked, indicating the chair next to my desk. "Of course, Father." He sat down and took the envelope in his hands with an almost sacred delicacy. He turned it, observed it against the light, read and reread the inscription on the front. "It's his handwriting," he said after a few minutes. "I'm certain. See how he forms the C and the way he extends the A? It's Carlo." "I think so too," I replied. "But why would he have hidden it?" Father Stefano placed the envelope on the desk and leaned back in his chair. Carlo was a particular boy. He had incredible spiritual maturity for his age, and he also had a certain prophetic awareness. He knew he would die young, even if he didn't talk about it openly. Perhaps this letter is something he wanted to leave for the future. "Should we open it?" I asked. "First, we need to be sure it's authentic," Father Stefano replied. "And we need to understand when it was written. Only after that can we decide if and how to open it." We spent the rest of the day analyzing every detail. I photographed the envelope from every angle, measured the dimensions, compared the handwriting with other certain documents of Carlo's from the same period. Everything corresponded. The paper was the same type used for other notes of his from 2005-2006. The ink was dark blue, the same he habitually used. Even the pressure of the pen on the paper was consistent with his writing. The next day, I contacted Mrs. Antonia. I explained about the discovery and sent her the photographs. Her response arrived in the afternoon. "It's Carlo's handwriting. I have no doubts, but I didn't know about the existence of this letter. You find the best way to handle it." That evening, back home, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that sealed envelope, those words, when the right time comes. Perhaps the right time was now. Perhaps this was why I had found it precisely, right on that November day in 2024. The world was going through a particular period. The pandemic had ended long ago, but it had left deep wounds. Technology had made giant leaps: artificial intelligence, virtual reality, increasingly invasive social media. Churches continued to empty while stadiums filled. Young people seemed increasingly distant from faith, attracted by 1,000 digital distractions. And Carlo, that boy who had foreseen so much of this, had left a hidden message. Friday morning, I requested an appointment with the Bishop of Assisi. I had to proceed in the right way, respecting the hierarchy and the sacredness of what we had in our hands. The bishop, Monsignor Domenico, received me in his study. I showed him everything: the photographs, the analyses, the family's confirmations. "Davide," he said after examining everything, "you're an archivist. You've dedicated your life to preserving documents. But sometimes documents aren't made just to be preserved. They're made to be read." I believe Carlo hid this letter because he wanted it to be found when necessary, and you found it. Perhaps this is the sign that the time has come. "So I can open it?" I asked. "Not only can you, you must," Monsignor Domenico replied. "But do it with prayer, and then tell us what's written." I returned to the sanctuary with the bishop's blessing. It was already late afternoon. Most of the pilgrims had left. I closed the door to my office, turned on only the desk lamp, and took the envelope. Before opening it, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I knelt down. I prayed. Not a formal prayer, but a sincere dialogue. "Carlo," I whispered, "if this message is for us, for our time, help me understand it. Help me receive it as you wanted it to be received." I stood up, took a letter opener, and with extreme delicacy, opened the envelope. Inside were 3 folded sheets. I extracted them and began to read. The letter began like this: "To whoever finds this letter, I am Carlo. I'm writing these words in the summer of 2006, a few months before I die. Yes, I know I will die soon. I don't know exactly when or how, but I feel it. It's not fear. It's just a certainty I carry inside. That's why I decided to hide this letter in a place where it can be found when it will be necessary. If you're reading these words, it means the time has come. I hid this letter because what I'm about to tell you wasn't for the world of 2006. It was for the world that will come after me. For your world, for the time when the battle will be harder and the deception more subtle. I'm just a 15-year-old boy. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a doctor of the church. I'm just Carlo, who loves Jesus in the Eucharist and who has understood one thing. Technology can be a wonderful tool to bring souls to God, but it can also become the greatest distraction in the history of humanity. What I'm about to write is a warning, a cry of love for a world I don't want to see lost. I had to stop. My hands were trembling. Carlo knew. At 15 years old, this boy knew he would die and had written a letter for the future. I breathed deeply and continued reading. First warning: the glass idols you will carry in your pocket. As I write, cell phones are becoming increasingly advanced. I myself use one to surf the internet and create my site on Eucharistic miracles, but I see something that the adults around me don't see yet. I see the future of these devices. In your time, they won't just be simple phones anymore. They will have become pocket divinities. You will worship them from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. You will consult them more often than you consult your conscience. You will give them more attention than you give to the people you love. These devices will become mirrors in which you continually seek yourselves. You will take photographs not to remember moments, but to show others that you are living. You will build false versions of yourselves, happier, more beautiful, more perfect, and show them to a world of strangers who will judge you with a thumbs up or down. This is the deception. They will make you believe you're connected when in reality you will be lonelier than ever. You will have 1,000 friends but no brother, 1,000 contacts but no communion, 1,000 likes but no true love. And you know what the most tragic thing is? You will use these devices even in church. During Mass, you will look at the screen instead of looking at the altar. You will reply to messages while God makes himself present in the Eucharist. You will take photographs of the tabernacle, but you won't kneel before it. Technology is not evil. I use it for God. But in your time, technology will have become an idol, and idols always separate from God. I beg you, don't let these devices take the place that belongs only to God in your heart. Use them as tools, not as masters. If you have to choose between an hour on social networks and an hour of Eucharistic adoration, choose adoration. Always. Because likes fade, but the Eucharist is the highway to heaven. I stopped again. Carlo had predicted smartphones, social media, digital addiction. And he had done it in 2006, when Facebook was barely born and Instagram didn't exist yet. I felt a shiver down my spine. I continued reading. Second warning: empty churches and hungry souls. In my time, churches are already starting to empty. But in your time, it will be much worse. Entire generations will grow up without knowing what the Eucharist is, not out of malice, but out of ignorance. No one will have ever explained to them that in that piece of bread there is Jesus, true, real, present. You will see magnificent churches transformed into museums, into restaurants, into nightclubs. While this happens, stadiums will be full, concerts will be sold out, squares will fill for anything except to worship God. And you know what will happen? People will be hungry, a terrible spiritual hunger. They will try to fill it with everything: travel, experiences, Eastern philosophies, crystals, horoscopes, psychologists, gurus of every kind. They will search everywhere, except in the only place where they could truly be satisfied: before the tabernacle. I understood something very simple. Happiness is not found. It is received, and it is received only from the one who is happiness itself. Jesus in the Eucharist is not a symbol. He is not a memory. It's him, alive, present, waiting. In your time, Mass will be streamed online. I know it will happen. I've already foreseen it. And it will be a good thing for those who are sick or unable to move. But it will also become an excuse. People will get used to participating in Mass from the couch at home, in pajamas, while having breakfast and looking at the phone. And they will think they've done their religious duty. But Mass is not a show to watch. It's a sacrifice to participate in. It's the moment when heaven touches earth. It's the only moment when you can physically receive God inside you. It can't be done via streaming. I beg you, return to the churches. Return to Sunday Mass. Return to adoration. Return to confession. Return to the Eucharist. Because without the Eucharist, there is no life. And when I say life, I'm not talking about just breathing. I'm talking about real, full, eternal life. Remember, the Eucharist is my highway to heaven, and it can be yours too. Tears were streaming down my face. I hadn't even noticed. This boy, at 15 years old, had understood everything that was happening in 2024. I dried my eyes and went on. Third warning: loneliness in the midst of the crowd. In your time, people will always be connected, but never truly together. You will spend hours writing messages instead of talking face to face. You will share photos instead of sharing time. You will know what hundreds of people do every day, but you won't really know anyone. The young people of your time will grow up with a strange sensation. They will have all the tools to communicate, but they won't know how to do it anymore. They will feel constantly observed, but also terribly alone. They will compare their real life with the perfect lives they see online, and they will feel inadequate, ugly, failed. And you know what the greatest drama is? Many of them will seek love in the wrong places. They will seek it in disposable relationships, in meaningless encounters. in applications where people are reduced to photographs to be swiped with a finger. They will think that love is a feeling that comes and goes, not a choice that is renewed every day. But true love is not like that. True love is that of Christ for his church. It's faithful, it's forever, it's sacrifice, it's total self-giving. In your time, you will need more than ever to rediscover community, not the virtual one, but the real one, the parish, the prayer group, friends who pray with you, not just those who go out with you. You will need people who look you in the eyes and tell you the truth, even when it hurts. I beg you, don't settle for superficial friendships. Seek brothers and sisters in Christ, people with whom you can share not only successes, but also struggles, not only smiles, but also tears, not only beautiful moments, but also moments of crisis. And when you find someone to truly love, love them as Christ loves the church, totally, faithfully, forever. Don't let the throwaway culture lead you to treat people as objects to be replaced when you don't like them anymore. Carlo was describing exactly the world of 2024. Loneliness, throwaway culture, liquid relationships, social media that isolate instead of connecting. I got up from the chair, walked to the window. Outside, it was dark. How much time had passed? I looked at the clock. 9 in the evening. I had been reading for hours without realizing it. I returned to the desk. I had to finish. Fourth warning. When each person has their truth, truth dies. In your time, there will be great confusion. People will say, "This is my truth," as if truth were something personal, subjective, interchangeable. But truth doesn't work like that. Truth is not an opinion. Truth doesn't depend on what you feel or what it's convenient for you to believe. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." He didn't say, "I am one of many possible truths." He said, "The truth, the only one, the absolute." In your time, even many Catholics will be afraid to proclaim this truth. They will be afraid of being called intolerant, closed-minded, antiquated. They will prefer silence to testimony, political correctness to the gospel, worldly acceptance to obedience to Christ. But the gospel doesn't change. What was true 2,000 years ago is true today and will be true always. Marriage is between a man and a woman forever. Life is sacred from conception to natural death. The Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ, not a symbol. Sunday Mass is an obligation, not an option. I know that in your time, these statements will seem radical, perhaps even violent, but it's not me saying them. It's Christ through his church. And the church cannot change what Christ taught, even if the whole world pressured it to do so. I beg you, don't be afraid to go against the current. Instead, embrace this countercurrent. In a world that says everything is relative, be absolute in faith. In a world that says every choice is valid, choose Christ and no one else. In a world that says truth doesn't exist, proclaim loudly, "Jesus Christ is the truth, and I belong to him." This doesn't mean being mean to those who think differently. It means loving truth enough not to betray it to please the world. It means being salt that gives flavor and light that illuminates, even when the world prefers blandness and darkness. I closed my eyes for a moment. Carlo was 16 years younger than me, yet his words had a maturity that I myself, at 40, struggled to reach. I continued with the last warning. Fifth warning: the battle for youth. My generation and those after me will be the main battlefield. The devil knows that if he conquers young people, he conquers the future, and he will use every weapon possible: easily accessible pornography, confused ideologies, moral relativism, digital addictions, existential despair. The young people of your time will grow up bombarded by messages that say, "Be yourself," but then they will be imposed what they must think, how they must dress, what they must believe. They will be told to be free, but they will be slaves to 1,000 addictions. They will be told to follow their heart, but no one will teach them anymore what the heart really is according to God. Many young people will live without hope. They will grow up thinking that life has no meaning, that after death there is nothing. that it's better to enjoy the present because the future is empty. And this despair will lead them to tragic choices: drugs, self-harm, even suicide. But here's the good news. Young people also have an incredible thirst for authenticity. They know how to recognize when someone is real or fake. They know when a testimony comes from the heart or just from the mouth. And if they encounter Christ truly, if they see Christians who live the gospel for real, they ignite. That's why the future is not lost. That's why I'm writing to you. Because I know that even in your time, even in the total confusion, God will continue to call young people to holiness. Young people who will use social media to evangelize instead of wasting time. Young people who will choose purity in a pornographic world. Young people who will go to mass when their friends go to nightclubs. Young people who will choose Christ above all things. I died at 15. I couldn't live youth as you understand it. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't go to university. I didn't travel the world. I didn't live all those experiences that the world considers necessary to be happy. Yet I was happy, because happiness doesn't depend on how long you live, but on how you live. And I lived every day for Jesus in the Eucharist. I say to the young people of your time, don't waste your life. You are made for greatness. You are made for holiness. You are made for heaven. Don't settle for the crumbs the world offers you when God wants to give you an eternal banquet. Only the last part of the letter remained. My hands kept trembling, but this time it wasn't just emotion. It was a kind of reverential awe. I continued reading. The 3 roads to salvation. After warning you of the dangers, I must also show you the solutions, because Christ didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it. And salvation is possible, always, for everyone. First road, return to the Eucharist. The Eucharist really is the highway to heaven. It's not a metaphor, it's reality. When you receive the Eucharist, you receive God Himself inside you. The Creator of the universe enters your body, your blood, your cells. There is nothing more powerful, more transforming, more holy. In your time, rediscover Eucharistic adoration. Spend an hour a week, just you and Jesus in the tabernacle. Bring there your worries, your fears, your sins, your dreams. Talk to Him, and then be silent and let Him speak to you. Go to Mass every Sunday, but really go, not with your body while your mind is elsewhere. Go prepared, confessed if you have serious sins, and receive the Eucharist with all your heart. That half hour of Mass is worth more than anything the world can offer you. Second road, use technology for God. I created a website on Eucharistic miracles. It was my mission. I wanted the whole world to know that Jesus is alive in the Eucharist, and that there is historical, medical, scientific proof of this. In your time, technology will be even more powerful. Use it for God, not against Him. Create content that brings souls to Christ. Use social media to witness your faith. Share gospel, catechesis, testimonies, miracles. Don't be afraid to go against the current. In a sea of empty content, be the meaningful content. In a wave of superficiality, be the depth. Perhaps you will lose followers. Perhaps you will be mocked. Perhaps you will be censored. But even one saved soul is worth more than millions of likes. Make the web a digital cathedral, a place where those who are lost can find the way, where those who are desperate can find hope, where those seeking truth can find Christ. Third road, holiness in the everyday. I've always said, we are all born originals, but many die as photocopies. Don't die photocopies, be original. And the only way to be truly original is to be holy, because every saint is unique, unrepeatable, special. Holiness is not for a privileged few. It's for everyone. It's for you reading this letter. Holiness doesn't mean performing miracles or having mystical visions. It means loving God above all things and doing everything for His glory. You can be holy in study, in work, in sports, in art, in family. You can be holy in the use you make of your phone, in the choice of movies you watch, in the video games you play, in the music you listen to. Every action, even the smallest, can become prayer if done for love of God. In your time, the world will tell you that holiness is impossible, that it's antiquated, that it's boring. They lie. Holiness is the only adventure worth living. Holiness is the only thing that will truly make you happy. Holiness is the only way not to waste the life God has given you. And remember, holiness is not measured in years. I died at 15, but I fully lived every day God gave me. It doesn't matter how long you will live. What matters is how you will live. I reached the last page. Tears were flowing freely down my face. I didn't wipe them away. Carlo deserved those tears too. To you who read this letter, I know you'll be wondering why I hid it, why I didn't simply leave it to my parents or my parish priest. The answer is simple. It had to be found at the right time. Not in 2006, when the world wasn't ready to understand yet, but after. When the things I told you about had become reality. When you, reading them, could say, it's true, it's really happening. If you're reading this letter, it means the time has come. It means the world needs to hear these warnings. It means God has chosen you, yes, you specifically, to receive this message and share it. Don't be afraid. I know that what I've written may seem harsh, frightening, perhaps exaggerated, but it's the truth. And truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is always better than the most comfortable lie. The world is changing rapidly, but God never changes. Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And his church, despite all the attacks, all the crises, all the scandals, remains his church. The gates of hell will not prevail against it. Never. What I ask of you is simple. Don't remain silent. Share this message. Make it known. Not to make me known. I'm just a boy who loved Jesus. But to make known the urgency of the situation. The world needs saints. It needs young people who say yes to God without conditions. It needs families who put Christ at the center. It needs holy priests, faithful consecrated persons, courageous laity. The world needs the Eucharist. And you who read, you who were chosen to find this letter, you can make a difference. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, what you've done in the past. Only one thing matters. Are you willing to say yes to God now? I said yes at 15. And those 15 years were worth more than 100 years lived far from God. I have no regrets. I lived. I loved. I gave everything. And you? What will you do with this life God has given you? Time is running out. The enemy advances, but Christ has already won. And we, if we stay with him, win too. I leave you with the words I've always carried in my heart. The Eucharist is my highway to heaven. May it be yours too. Don't be sad for me. I'm happy. I'm with Jesus. And from up there, I intercede for you, for all those seeking truth, for all those who want to love God but don't know how. See you in paradise. With affection and prayer, Carlo Acutis, P.S. If you're wondering if I could really know all these things at 15, the answer is no, not alone. But the Holy Spirit blows where he wills, and sometimes he chooses ordinary kids to say extraordinary things. I was just a normal boy who loved pizza, video games, and my dogs. But I loved Jesus even more. And when you truly love Jesus, he opens your eyes to things others don't see. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a boy who looked at the world with God's eyes. And from that perspective, everything is seen very clearly. Assisi, July 3rd, 2006. I finished reading. The silence in the room was total, absolute, almost sacred. I looked at the clock on the wall. 12:25. I'd been reading for almost 5 hours without stopping, without eating, without drinking, without moving from the chair. The desk lamp was the only source of light in the entire building. Outside, Assisi was sleeping its centuries-old sleep. I refolded the sheets with infinite care, almost with reverential awe, and put them back in the envelope. My hands were trembling. I couldn't stop trembling. It was as if I had just touched something radioactive, powerfully radioactive. Those words written by a 15-year-old, 18 years earlier, weren't just prophetic. They were devastatingly current, precisely applicable, terribly true. Then I did the only sensible thing a man can do when faced with naked truth. I started crying, not a composed, elegant, controlled cry, a disruptive, liberating, deep cry. I was sobbing like a child, with my head in my hands, my body shaken by violent tremors. I wasn't crying from sadness, at least not mainly. I was crying because Carlo was right. About everything. Every single word of that letter perfectly described the world of 2024. Our world, the world we live in every day without realizing how sick it is, how far from God, how much it's plunging toward a spiritual abyss masked by technological progress and individual freedom. The glass idols in our pockets, yes, there they are. Our smartphones that we check on average 150 times a day, that we check as soon as we wake up and before sleeping, that we even take to the bathroom, that we can't leave even during Mass. Carlo had predicted it. At 15, in 2006, when Facebook was barely born and Instagram didn't exist yet, he had already seen where we were going. Empty churches and full stadiums. There they are. The alarming data that every year shows dramatic drops in religious practice. Churches closing, vocations collapsing, while concerts sell out in minutes and influencers have millions of followers willing to wait hours in line just for a photo. Loneliness in the midst of the crowd. There it is, the epidemic of depression, anxiety, panic attacks that especially affects young people, those of the connected generation, who are actually the most isolated, loneliest, most desperate generation in human history. 1,000 virtual friends, but no one real. 1,000 likes, but no real embrace. The loss of truth, there it is, the culture of my truth that has transformed objective truth into an obsolete, outdated, oppressive concept. Everyone has their own truth. Everyone is free to decide what is good and what is evil. Everyone can create a custom morality. And meanwhile, truth with a capital T, Christ, is forgotten, ridiculed, expelled from public life. The battle for youth, there it is. The silent but fierce war fought every day for kids' souls through easily accessible pornographic content, confused ideologies bombarding them from every direction, moral relativism taught even in schools, existential nihilism that leads them to wonder what's the point of living if there's nothing after death. Carlo had seen everything, and not only had he seen, he had also indicated the solutions. 3 clear, practicable, concrete solutions. Return to the Eucharist, use technology for God, live holiness in the everyday, not complicated theories, not sophisticated strategies, just evangelical simplicity applied to the 21st century. But I was also crying for another reason, more personal, more painful. I was crying for myself, because I realized how much time I had wasted. 40 years lived halfway, 40 years of lukewarm faith, of distractedly received Eucharists, of masses listened to while watching the clock waiting for them to end, of adorations never done, of postponed confessions, of mechanical prayers. Carlo at 15 had lived more than me at 40. Carlo at 15 was holier than I'll ever be. Carlo at 15 had understood the meaning of life while I, at 40, was still looking for it. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't have. How do you go home after reading such a letter? How do you go to sleep after receiving a prophetic message from a blessed? How do you pretend nothing happened after being confronted with the crudest and most beautiful truth at the same time? I stayed in the office, sitting at the desk, with the letter in front of me. I prayed, not with the usual formal prayers, but with a prayer that flowed from the heart like blood from an open wound. Lord, what should I do? What do you want me to do? You made me find this letter. Why? What should I do with it? The answer didn't come immediately. It came slowly, like the dawn that was beginning to lighten the sky outside the window. I had to share this letter. I couldn't keep it to myself. couldn't hide it again, couldn't pretend I hadn't found it. Carlo had written it for our time. Carlo had hidden it, waiting for the right moment. And the right moment was now. November 2024, a few months before the canonization that would take place in September 2025. The world needed to read those words. The church needed to hear that warning. Young people needed to hear that call. At 6 a.m, I left the office. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, but I felt strangely energetic, lucid, determined. I went to the 7 o'clock Mass celebrated by Father Stefano in the sanctuary's crypt. During the homily, the Father spoke precisely about Carlo, about his Eucharistic devotion, about his desire to bring everyone to Jesus. It was as if he was speaking directly to me, as if he already knew about the letter, even though I hadn't told him anything yet. After Mass, I stopped him. "Father, I need to speak with you urgently." We returned to my office. I showed him the envelope, told him how I had found it, and then read him the entire letter. Father Stefano is 62 years old, a Franciscan who has seen everything in his long priestly life. Yet while I read him Carlo's words, I saw tears streaming down his face. When I finished, he remained silent for a good 5 minutes. Then he said, "This letter must be made public, immediately." Monday morning, November 18th, 2024, I convened an extraordinary meeting. Present were Father Stefano, Monsignor Domenico Sorrentino, Bishop of Assisi, Gualdo Tadino, and Nocera Umbra, Mrs. Antonia Salzano, connected via video call from Milan, the postulator of the canonization cause Don Nicola Gori, and some members of the Commission for Carlo's documentary heritage. I read them the letter from beginning to end, without interruptions. 40 minutes of reading in absolute silence. When I finished, I looked at the faces of everyone present. Some were crying openly, others had reddened eyes but were struggling to maintain control. All were deeply shaken. Mrs. Antonia was the first to speak. Her voice trembled. "It's my son. I recognize his heart in every word. I recognize his love for Jesus, his concern for young people, his ability to see beyond. What he wrote is not the fruit of adolescent fantasy or exaggeration. Carlo really had this prophetic capacity, and he was right about everything. Look around you. We live exactly in the world he described. Our young people are exactly as he imagined them, alone, confused, hungry for truth, but fed lies. This letter cannot remain hidden. It's a gift for the Church. It's a warning we must make resound loudly." Monsignor Domenico nodded slowly. He's a cultured, prudent bishop, accustomed to weighing every word before pronouncing it. But that morning, he spoke with an urgency I had never seen in him. "Brothers, sisters, what we've just heard is not a simple historical document. It's a prophetic word for our time. The Church has always recognized that God speaks through his saints, even after their death. Saint Therese of Lisieux wrote, 'I will spend my heaven doing good on earth.' Carlo is continuing his evangelizing mission through this letter. We must make it known to the world, but we must do it the right way, with all the seriousness and authority it deserves." Don Nicola, the postulator, had a practical concern. "We must first make sure of the authenticity 100%. We can't afford mistakes. Carlo's fame is already immense. If we publish this letter, it will have a worldwide impact. We must be absolutely certain it's authentic." We spent the following days doing every possible verification, graphological analyses, comparing the handwriting of the envelope and letter with other certain documents of Carlo's, dating of the paper and ink, stylistic comparison with his other writings, family testimonies about the possibility that Carlo had written and hidden such a letter. Everything confirmed it was authentic. It was Carlo. It was his hand. It was his voice. It was his heart. On December 2nd, 2024, exactly 3 weeks after my discovery, a press conference was convened in the Hall of Reconciliation at the Sacred Convent of Assisi. Present were journalists from all over the world: Italy, United States, Brazil, Poland, Philippines, India. practically every continent. The news that a hidden letter from Carlo Acutis had been found had already circled the globe even before its content was revealed. Monsignor Domenico opened the conference with a solemn statement. Today, we make public a letter written by Blessed Carlo Acutis in the summer of 2006, a few months before his death. The letter was hidden by Carlo himself and found on November 12, 2024, by archivist Davide Romano during cataloguing work. After careful verifications, we can state with absolute moral certainty that the letter is authentic. Its content is of extraordinary relevance for our time and confirms the prophetic dimension of this young blessed's testimony. Then he read the entire letter. 50 minutes of reading broadcast live on all Vatican channels and picked up by the main world televisions. An unreal silence filled the hall. Some journalists, accustomed to professional cynicism, were wiping their eyes with tissues. When the reading ended, pandemonium broke loose. Questions from everywhere. How is it possible that a 15-year-old in 2006 so precisely predicted the world of 2024? Does the Church really believe it's an authentic prophecy? What concrete actions does the Church intend to undertake in response to this warning? Will this letter influence the canonization process? I was sitting in the front row next to Father Stefano. I felt overwhelmed. That envelope I had opened in the solitude of my office was changing the world. Carlo's words were reaching millions of people in real time. In the following weeks, the letter became viral in the true sense of the word. It was translated into 50 languages. It was read on news broadcasts, discussed on talk shows, analyzed by theologians, commented on by philosophers, quoted by bishops in Sunday homilies. Pope Leo XIV, Francis's successor, elected in 2024, spoke about it during the Angelus. The words of Blessed Carlo Acutis are a wake-up call for the Church and for the world. We cannot ignore this warning. We cannot pretend everything is fine. Carlo is calling us to conversion, to return to the essential, to the primacy of the Eucharist. Let us listen to him. But the most extraordinary thing was something else. Young people responded. By the thousands, tens of thousands. They wrote letters, emails, messages on social media. Carlo was right. I live exactly what he described. I'm addicted to my smartphone. I feel alone even when I'm connected with 1,000 people. I've lost the sense of my life. But I want to change. I want to return to God. Eucharistic adoration groups were born spontaneously in hundreds of parishes throughout Italy and the world. Young people who hadn't been to Mass in years started again. Requests increased to become catechists, to do parish volunteering, to participate in spiritual retreats. A movement called Eucharist Generation was born inspired precisely by Carlo's letter, with thousands of members in just a few months. On the web, young creators began producing evangelization content, TikTok videos explaining the Eucharist, podcasts telling saints' lives, Instagram accounts dedicated to catechesis, YouTube channels with conversion testimonies, exactly as Carlo had indicated in his letter. Use technology for God. Transform the internet into a digital cathedral. Of course, not everyone reacted positively. Some progressive theologians accused the Church of instrumentalizing an adolescent document for conservative purposes. Some secularist journalists spoke of religious fanaticism and return to the Middle Ages. Some psychologists questioned whether a 15-year-old could really have that prophetic maturity, but the criticisms were drowned by the wave of enthusiasm and conversion that the letter generated. As for me, my life changed completely that night of November 12, 2024. I'm no longer just an archivist who catalogues dusty documents. I'm a witness to how God continues to speak through his saints, even after their death. A witness to how a 15-year-old boy can see the future and leave a map to cross it without getting lost. A witness to how the Eucharist really is the highway to heaven. Today, when I enter my office and see that envelope, now kept in a climate-controlled glass case to preserve it from deterioration, I understand that I didn't open it. It was opened by the right moment, by God's time, by providence that governs everything. Carlo had hidden that letter, waiting for this precise instant. And I was just the instrument, the means, the hand God used to reveal to the world what needed to be revealed. The question Carlo poses at the end of his letter still resonates in my mind every day, every hour, every minute. You? What will you do with this life God has given you? I found my answer. It's not a complete, definitive, perfect answer. It's an answer that's built day by day, falling and getting up, making mistakes and starting over. But it's a sincere answer. I want to live like Carlo lived. I want to love the Eucharist as he loved it. I want to use my talents for God as he did. I want to reach holiness, even if it seems impossible to me, because Carlo taught me that holiness is possible for everyone, always, everywhere. Every morning, when I wake up in this small apartment in Assisi, I look at the olive grove outside the window and thank God for bringing me here. I thank him for that phone call in April 2021 that changed my life's trajectory. I thank him for that Tuesday in November 2024 when a notebook fell to the floor and a hidden envelope came to light. I thank him for Carlo, for his intercession, for his example, for his prophetic words that continue to convert souls. The canonization is scheduled for September 7th, 2025, less than a year away now. Carlo will officially be a saint, but for me, for all those who have read his letter, for all those who have been transformed by his message, Carlo is already a saint. He's a saint because he continues to do what he did in life, bring souls to Jesus in the Eucharist. He's a saint because his voice didn't go silent with death, but resounds louder than ever. He's a saint because God is using him, just as he desired, to save his generation and future ones. And every time I pass by his tomb in the sanctuary, I stop and whisper a prayer. Carlo, thank you. Thank you for not remaining silent. Thank you for having the courage to write that letter. Thank you for hiding it, waiting for the right moment. Thank you for continuing to speak from heaven. Pray for us. Pray for this confused, lost world, hungry for truth. Pray that more people discover that the Eucharist really is the highway to heaven. And pray for me, that I may faithfully live the mission entrusted to me. Because yes, now I know, finding that letter was not a coincidence. It was an entrusted mission, and I will carry it forward until the last day of my life, until the last breath. Because Carlo was right, time is running out. The enemy advances, but Christ has already won, and we, if we stay with him, win too. The Eucharist really is the highway to heaven, and I want to travel it to the end, together with Carlo, together with all the saints, together with you who are reading these words, and who, perhaps, today will decide to say yes to God. A yes without reservations, a total yes, a yes forever. If this story has touched your heart, entrust your prayers to the intercession of Blessed Carlo Acutis. Subscribe to the channel to discover other testimonies that nourish our faith. Leave your like and turn on the bell so you don't miss any story.